How do I do this? Ah, there we go. Time to start sharing this thing. Get some people up in here. Copy link. How do I do this? No, stop it. Stop. Okay. Bear with me here. Trying to get things working, and ain't nobody here just yet anyway. Okay, it looks like I need to hit a thingy. Okay. Had to turn my chat on. Welcome, whoever ye be. We'll get going here shortly. Just trying to get the word out real quick. Huh, that didn't work. Okay, try again. There we go. No. Okay, so there's a couple of yens on here now, so we'll get started in just 1 second. I need a little bit more of my go-go juice. I wanted to get started right at 6, but that didn't quite happen. Let me adjust here. All right, so that didn't quite happen because long day. Had to get a couple of things done whenever I first got home, and I had to get ready for the day, right? Yeah, Krampus is why we're here. Well, ish. Real reason why we're here doing a live podcast is, well, because I think I messed up somewhere along the lines. I don't know if I actually messed up or if like there was just some sort of communication error between devices or what. But I ended up having an issue with my soundbite or whatever, like my audio file, like audio/video file that I had recorded like a week ago. Like I was ahead of the game and was so ready like to go for this. Like I had stuff picked out, which that reminds me, I had like stuff picked out that I went through that I had done for this episode specifically, and then it all just kind of and just fell apart because half my audio was bad, like no audio at all. It was just me sitting there, and so had to pitch it and had to come up with a plan. And then I was like, well, this would be a unique take, something that we haven't done yet. And Tin Roof is now for sure a year old, because like distinctly this, like the Krampus episode was at one point one of my biggest ones, but we'll get into all of that here in just a minute, because I really wanted to discuss Krampusnacht, because like that's like it's an unofficial holiday in our house. There's a blue dot on my screen that I didn't notice before, and it's bugging me. Oh, no, I don't care about retouch. Let me be as ugly as I am. All right. Sorry, OCD moment there. But anyway, so it is an unofficial official holiday in our household that my son and I loosely keep, but my wife seems to refuse to acknowledge. And some of that people will be like, huh, wonder why. But it's all in good fun. So if you're new to the whole Krampus idea, why'd that look unplugged to me? It's plugged in though. If you're new to the whole Krampus idea, the idea is that basically, so December 5th is Krampusnacht, which in like German, because it's like from the Germany, Austria, Norway region, means, Krampus night. And so that being said, Krampus comes on the eve of December 5th, so the night of December 5th, and he punishes the bad children to give way for the children who were good to receive trinkets and stuff from St. Nicholas. Essentially, Germany, Norway, that region's Santa Claus. And so he's big, he's creepy. It's meant to keep kids in line, not just from like the size of him and his look, but also his actions. So he shakes chains at you, will spank you with birch branches, or take you off to the underworld in his basket. So it's like what Krampus is all about, as far as like the general idea. And there's been a lot of really cool like different mentions of him throughout pop culture here in America within like the past handful of years, like 10-ish years ago. I'd have to look at the actual like publication date, but there was an actual movie called Krampus that came out that had like Adam Scott in it. What is his name? I said it last night because I was actually watching the movie last night to go to bed until my wife was like, I can't watch this to go to bed. And I can't remember his name. He's super hilarious. David Koechner. There we go. I knew if I talked long enough and rambled on long enough, I'd get it. But so David Koechner is in it, and I'm pretty sure that guy just plays himself in everything he's in. But he's hilarious. So it was a good time. It was fun. Even though I didn't get to finish the movie and I fell asleep fairly quickly. I think I made it like 20, 30 minutes in. And then I was out. But that was also when my wife changed it, was like before I fell asleep. But that being said, he's been in other things as well. Comics and stuff has really like taken him on in different ways. Like Marvel is why did I say Marvel? I meant to say Marvel. Marvel has turned him into a villain, and he's been, throughout different things. And eventually, there will be it was going to be a graphic novel, but the goal is, I've got kind of a big ambitious goal for next winter. The goal is to publish 3 books next winter. We'll see what happens. That's a really lofty goal, but basically 2 of them would come out Black Friday, and then the other one would come out a little bit closer to Christmas. But one of them would be like a novel around like a Krampus story. And so I'm really looking forward to readapting it and fixing it and adding to it to make it an actual like novel. The goal will probably be like 250 to 450 pages. I'm keeping it very loose on page count just because I don't know where it's going to end up. Comic book wise, I know it's at like 80. So I know to write things, I can expand it and do a few other things with it. So that is going to be fun. But then also, if you are familiar with my writing works and not just my podcasts or my YouTube channel, also, if there's anything that you guys want to talk about that are watching, put it in the chat and hopefully I can read it from here. I've got a little bit of a distance because I'm used to recording this way. But if you have any... I said that already. That's not what I meant to say. So, also, with it being a Thursday, I worked all day. Where was I going? Oh, yeah. If you're familiar with my writing works, as well as the other things that I've done, I wrote and published a horror Christmas poetry book. How long ago has that been? 4 years. Okay, so 4 years ago, I published my first ever like Christmas poetry book or whatever, and it was a horror themed one called Christmas Within the Lantern Light. I am excited to say that next year will be, fingers crossed, it may have to take some time because of schedule and everything else, and I've got a couple other big things planned that are actually gonna come pretty quick in succession. But I'm hoping Christmas Within the Lantern Light will also come out in fall, winter of 2025. So lots of really cool things, and the reason why I brought up one second. The reason why I brought up Christmas Within the Lantern Light is I'm going to read a couple excerpts from Christmas Within the Lantern Light 2 for you. I had written a couple of poems. I was also going to read some from the original Christmas Within the Lantern Light, but seems my Kindle is not agreeing with me. Of course it wouldn't. Why would it whenever I'm live? So let's go to our excerpts, and I'm going to try not to thump too much on the table. I have a tendency of doing that, so I apologize. I gotta go back a little ways because it's been a minute since. There it is. All right, so we're going to start things off with Where the Wendigos Walk. That being said, here up north, there's things in the firs that go back and forth. Creatures that are said to once be men, they act as something less when they leave their den, for they crave human flesh, part wolf, part human, part deer. It's some sort of demonic mesh. Standing somewhere around 14 feet tall, it's a freakish sight when on all limbs they crawl. If you survive, nary a sentence about this can you talk, during your time up north where the Wendigos walk. One winter, while in that part of the country, it's a powerful tale meant to be unspoken. So I'll put it bluntly, setting out in the cold December air for a meal of youthful 20-somethings with meat so tender and fair, looking to satisfy their appetite while possessing others to spread fear in the night. The Wendigos set upon a group of young adult friends having a Christmas party out in the woods, sitting in truck beds around a fire, spreading cheer and making merry so hearty. I'll never forget the girl who first saw them. Her screams, a blood-curdling shrill that I'll hear in the darkest part of my dreams. The terrified expression as she looked up. Another one yanked a young man from the bed of a pickup. The commotion caused everyone to scatter. They could try to flee. It wouldn't really matter. The way everyone ran back and forth was fun for the Wendigos and less of a chore. They feasted on some, turning others to Wendigos is what they'd become. The shriller shrieks and screams, quiet filled the air. Then the Wendigos began to sing. What a gut-wrenching and horrifying sound. The noise they make is a curse, and sick becomes the ground. Now and then, people will try to build or camp in the Wendigo territory. Every time, no matter the scenario, it becomes a real-life, scary story. I know from experience from a camping trip. On the second night is when I fell into the Wendigo's grip. Sneaking their way silently into our camp, devouring everyone but myself, I awoke in something warm and damp. Fully coming to, I realized it was my own blood. The pain, agony, and transformation, my senses began to flood. Staggering my way into the open, I fell into the pure white snow, screaming in anguish as my body began to change and grow, transforming, mutating into this demonic thing. For tonight, it's me that gets to sing. If you travel up north, your life could be on the chopping block. When you go, where the Wendigos walk. So, that is one of my poems. I feel like this is still so far away. Still trying to get comfortable after being live for almost 20 minutes. So, that's one of the poems I have written for Christmas Within the Lantern Light 2. I had a couple of Krampus poems, but they seem to have disappeared. I have a couple of fun, like, short little ones, though, that we can read. Oh, well. That one's not quite done yet. Although this could be a fun little excerpt. I don't know. I don't know if I really have much going on in that one, so I'm not going to read that one just yet. But here we go. That's what happens when you accidentally like click on something when you don't mean to. This one is like an expanded haiku, essentially. And it's come one, come all, to meet the new jumping jackal. A new toy flying off the shelves this season. Those pushing for recall ignore their reason. Only a few people the toy did maul. So, just some fun couple of little poems that I already have done. Yeah, that one's not done yet. Okay. That one might be done, but I'd like to proofread it before I actually go, oh yeah, how about this one? Here, let's see here. Krampus. Because I had a bunch of Krampus stuff. Let's see. I know where I do have some stuff. So, if you aren't familiar with my social medias, I had a horrible awful occurrence that happened over the summer, and that kind of like messed up a lot of my stuff. My stuff got hacked because of a seemingly very real hacker. Basically latched onto my stuff and took it from me. They made it seem like one of my posts had been taken down, and I was trying to figure out why, because I had just literally just made a post like 20 minutes prior, and I was in the middle of doing a bunch of filming that weekend for different things, including Tin Roof. And so I was all excited because just finished recording. I think I had finished recording a Calloused Hands episode, and so I went to check it, and whenever I went to check it, I was like, oh, I got to dispute this, because it's just a cooking video is all I posted. And so I go to dispute it to see what was said, and I click the link and I go to sign in, and it looks all official. It looks like something straight from Facebook, and it was not. So I ended up losing access to my page that I had just grown with a ton of followers. It felt really good because I went from very little to like exploding the number like by 100%. Now the numbers were still low. Like I'm looking at the old page right now, and I had 402 followers, but that's way bigger than what I have again. And so I'm trying to grow that again. But I had on here, if I can find it, more photos. I had on here a short story that I had done about Krampus, because it is something that I enjoy very, very much, as you can tell, because we're going to make this a annual episode that we do where we discuss Krampusy things. I'll try to, I guess, have a bit more to talk about Krampus wise next year. But we're gonna talk some music. We're gonna talk a few different things. Here we go, right here. Snows of the Demon is the title of the poem. You know what? While I'm here, I'm gonna get this back. I'm gonna get this back because I really enjoyed this particular poem that I wrote. So, yeah. You know what? Yeah. All right. So, Snows of the Demon. Snatching the remote and pushing my sister, she cries. Facing punishment via my parents' scorn, I ease them with lies. Mom and Dad bought it, much to my surprise. Feeling at ease, but my wrongdoings didn't go past another's eyes. Somewhere in a snow-covered void stands a castle, black, ancient, and evil, looking with certain accents destroyed. Haha. Look. So, let me start that line over. Stands a castle, black, ancient, and evil, looking with certain accents destroyed. A dark creature with blazing red eyes sits upon a throne made out of various stones and unknown bones. With every wrong deed, the monster seethes. At mine, he gritted his teeth, through his massive snow globe, he watched all the bad kids. Growing stronger with every wrong they did, the fall grew cold, and in came the snows. Before anyone knew it, it was over for the turkey, and up went the bows. Us bad kids never knew we were about to pay for our misconduct. It was December 5th, the dreaded Krampusnacht. An insane storm blew in with snow and ice. Dad said, "This is the worst storm in my life." I didn't care. With this accumulation, school would be off for a week. We were finishing breakfast when we heard a knock at the door. It was a delivery. Dad brought in this big gift-wrapped box. This thing is pretty heavy, like it's filled with rocks. The box began to shake, and with ripping and tearing from inside, it began to break. Out popped 5 goblins. 2 were carrying Holly and a wooden rocking horse that was alive. 2 goblins lurched after me with a dive. I dodged and rolled out of the way. Mom and Dad weren't so lucky, to my dismay, due to being caught in dismay. The rocking horse went after and frightened sister. Finally, our family broke free and gathered in a room together when we heard them whisper, he comes for the liar," said one. Fingers tapped on the door. "Pray he leaves something when he's done." We all looked at each other, puzzled. I realized what they meant when there was a rustle. Coming from all sides of the door was holly growing all over. Couldn't see the walls anymore. The living room was a viney forest. Behind me, I heard the gruff of the horse. He ran underneath me, forcing me onto his back. We galloped down the hardwood hall, where he skidded to a stop, slamming me into the drywall, causing it to crack. Dad chased the horse into a closet and had it trapped. We cleaned up the holly the best we could and settled in for a nap. In the middle of the night, the whole family woke to the sound of little clawed feet running through the house. We'd never seen anything, though, despite the sound. Then suddenly, I hear on the roof. Still not realizing the errors of my ways and not telling the truth, a gnarly hand reaches down and opens my window. Surely it's a dream, and that it's just a shadow. I roll over and close my eyes. I feel more refreshed, and none of this will be real in the sunrise. Then I hear a scratching on my bedpost. I raise my head, shaking like I seen a ghost. At first, it looked as if nothing was there, when I seen a pointer finger and a knuckle covered with hair. It ran back down the post. Suddenly, I lurched back awake. I could only hope Suddenly, the creature began to rise. Once it hit its full height, I met its eyes. In the pitch black, shrouded by his hood, were eyes glowing a blood red. So many thoughts ran through my panicked head. I tried to escape my bed and run. He tripped me with my covers so quick my head spun. Looking up, before I knew it, coming down on my face was a birch limb. Blood began to cascade down my face. Things were looking grim. Too numb and shocked to escape, couldn't even speak, I was so dazed. I looked upward at the creature as he dragged me through the hall. Before I knew it, we were next to the Christmas tree, gifts and all. He pulled out an enormous chain and wrapped an end around his hand. I couldn't see straight, but I managed to stand. Or so I thought when the chain hit my calves, landing on my back, looking around for an escape path. He had me in his grip, and was about to put me in his bag when my sister came in and said something sad. "Please, sir, leave him here. He's all I have. I'll make sure he's learned his lesson. He's not all bad." My sister, now close to the beast, still trying to plead, caring for me so much, she gets down on her knees. The beast goes quiet and pauses. His reply: "His punishment is not done, but it won't end with a coffin." And he drags me out the door. I began to scream and cry, fearful of what was in store. I begged for forgiveness and empathy. That's when the snowmen grabbed at me. 4 of them, clamoring and arguing about who was going to get to eat. One pulled me away from the others and swallowed me whole. The inside was so cold, the bones hurt in my feet. Not even a minute inside, the monster shoved his hand in and pulled me out, taking with me the snowman's soul. I promised his life, he yelled at the curs. He flung me across the yard into a fir. I became fused with the tree, exposing only my head so I could see. Toys, goblins, and snowmen all came over to mock. Even the pines and cedars seemed to talk, but they all grew silent when he walked up. The silence was deafening, feeling it all build up, his chain again in his hand. He began to list demands. "You will behave, and a life you will get to live." I felt relief at his passion to forgive. "This will all seem like a dream. Remember, I'm always watching." I awoke with a bump and a small cut. My room seemed normal except for something atop my hutch. Climbing out of bed to see a new snow globe inside a brooding, decaying, wicked castle that caused the memories to flow. I ran downstairs, kissed my sister, and hugged my dad and mom, for I will never forget and will always keep Krampusnacht. Alright, so how am I going to get this back? This one in particular was written in 2020. How interesting. Okay, click. 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 Perfect. I think I got it. Awesome. All right. So, let's see. I'm afraid I'm going to end up missing y'all's comments. No? Live chat's on. Okay. Well, we will continue on. So, I guess we shall talk some music. So, a handful of things have been going on music-wise that have been really interesting. First and foremost, metal has gone viral in a very interesting way. National, actually, would probably be the better, more old-school term. It would appear that people are upset that metal exists. As I comedically slurp my coffee. So, I find this funny because while I'm not a huge fan of Knocked Loose, I thought it was great that them and Poppy got to do... Oh, what is the name of their song? I listened to this album, and I thought it was pretty decent. And... I thought it was pretty decent because they have some good sounds to them, like especially instrumentally. I'm just not a fan. Maybe that's silly of me, but their their stylings is just not what I like. The little bit that their singer was on Motionless in White's album, where they did Slaughterhouse. Of course, they did Slaughterhouse 2 on this album. I need to get the album name since I'm sitting here referencing things. Like I said, I don't fully follow. Okay, You Won't Go Before You're Supposed to, which I think is a very cool title for an album. I dig it. So, Suffocate featuring Poppy is actually their number one song if you look on Apple Music. And aptly so. They're. I don't know if that one has. Well, that's interesting because like there has to be an edited version because they just did it on TV, and I doubt that they would. Okay, well the only version you can find is the unedited version. So I would I don't recommend that just because I'm not a fan of music that is, well, explicit. I do my best to not listen to that, so I can't suggest it myself. That being said, they got a lot of backlash. Like Jimmy Fallon, like people were calling for Jimmy Fallon to, or not Jimmy Fallon. I'm sorry, Jimmy Kimmel to apologize for having them on his show, and I'm just baffled because we've had metal bands and stuff on these late nights before. Korn has done it several times. Slipknot has done it several times. And so for a band like Knocked Loose, who's a bit more like Slipknot sings some, Korn sings a lot more than Slipknot does, but they're both still metal bands. But now we have a metal band that does nothing but scream finally in the limelight. And there was so much hate for it just because it's not the norm. And I mean, if you hear it, because, and I don't know if it's because of like the news channels that I follow as far as like music goes, that I knew in advance that they were going to be on there, or what the deal is. Because I get clearly your average listener, or not listener, but your average viewer of Jimmy Kimmel is not going to be listening to a band like Knocked Loose. But the whole point of having different bands on there is to expose these bands so they can get more of a following. Very much like, me attempting to do this live to hopefully, gain some following. Plus, I wanted to do a podcast. But anyways, I digress. The lead singer of Knocked Loose eventually made a post, and I want to read it to you because I thought it was really, really well put. Brian Garris is his name, so I apologize for not knowing it prior to, but like I said, I don't normally follow Knocked Loose very closely. Okay, so this particular article is from NME.com. I've read this article, like different articles regarding this particular post several times since he has tweeted it, posted it, whatever. So NME has it like this. Brian Garris has reflected on the huge TV moment, saying, "Our goal has been to see how far we could squeeze this band into places where we don't fit." And national TV is definitely a place where a band like Knocked Loose, you're not going to see. So Knocked Loose frontman Brian Garris has responded to a viral comment about the band's recent performance on Jimmy Kimmel Live. The U.S. hardcore punk group appeared. That's really interesting that they called them a U.S. hardcore punk group, because I mean, yes, there's two accurate things there. U.S. and I guess hardcore, or so maybe 3 group, but I wouldn't call them punk. So that's interesting. They were joined Poppy for a ferocious rendition of their collaborative song, Suffocate, and performed some other tracks from their third and latest album, 2024's You Won't Go Before You're Supposed to. The epic TV appearance included blazing pyro, circle pits in the wild crowd, and next level screaming from both Garris and Poppy. It's kind of cool that there were circle pits in the crowd at a national television show. So Knocked Loose played the hard-hitting and heavy, riff-heavy song in front of the audience as rain poured down at the outdoor venue. Upon announcing the mini concert on Kimmel, Knocked Loose described themselves as the heaviest band on live television. We kind of addressed that already, but yes. Another said, a song this heavy being on late-night talk show is insane, which is true. But also, because the point that they're getting ready to bring up is a really good point, and I think it's one we need to talk about. I wanted to read more of just the post than that, but than that other stuff. But this stuff kind of follows along because they bring up a really good point. We just had a metal band at the Olympics in France, although the band is from France, and they got to do their really cool rendition of, I'm gonna butcher how you say this because I don't speak French, Kai Saya, I think is how it's pronounced. And so the fact that that we've had metal in 2 places where they normally wouldn't be is a big deal. It shows a lot as far as, like, I guess where culture is, because, you know, these opportunities for bands like these is opening up more. Because, like, you know, back then, yeah, Linkin Park was heavy. When I say back then, I mean whenever I was a kid. And nowadays, it's like we're getting Knocked Loose on TV. Back in the day, the only place you would see a band like Meshuggah or Hatebreed or Lamb of God or something like that would have been on Fuse or on Headbangers Ball, which used to be on MTV. And so, like, getting this huge opportunity to be on national television and not just cable is huge. And I'm super stoked that it happened. You know, people who were upset about it, you know, you are definitely entitled to your opinion. Why your kid was up late watching Kimmel, though, is a bit strange. Unless you were like TiVoing it, but it seems like from the way the post was, it happened live. But anyways, I think that's enough about the Knocked Loose thing. I applaud it. I think that Brian Garris handled the afterwards very professionally, and so very, very proud of, like, where we are metal wise with things. But being proud of where we are metal wise thing, let's talk about where we are country wise, and then we're gonna get into the, like, rap playlists and stuff that have just came out and are, like, trending. So we have all of these pop country people out there doing things, and we have a handful of guys that I, you know, I'm very, very pumped about, which we got to talk CMAs. So somewhat sidetracking here for a minute because I want to talk CMAs because this is a big deal. We have people who did some things that are not cool and are extremely disappointing. And then we have some other dudes that did some very, very cool. So Red Clay Strays is a band that I have touted on here before whenever we've discussed country music. They show up looking like they were trying to attend one of the 1970s CMAs. I don't know if the CMAs were actually a thing back then, but they look like they're there for an award show for the 1970s, which is awesome because it's very fitting to their sound. They're very much like a 70s sounding band, and I love their music. Like, I feel like I'm in a smoky 70s room whenever I'm listening to them because they're just awesome. They just are. But the CMAs let me down with their reception of the very, very popular new coming artist Shabuzi. People started using his name as a joke, and it became a running joke that was eventually kind of like beating a dead horse. And I honestly am very disappointed in that because I don't think it was necessary. I don't think it was right. We have this new guy that comes in and is riding a very big high, in all honesty, because his first album is amazing, and there's a couple of songs on there that I'm not a big fan of, but when you have Let It Burn, Highway, I can't. What is that one with? Man, now it's gonna bug me. But you have Tipsy, you have Let It Burn, you have Highway, you have a few other songs on there that are just absolutely amazing. That one is gonna bug me though. And he just dropped another single too that I want to talk about. Last of My Kind is pretty good, and so is My Fault featuring Noah Cyrus. If you haven't listened to My Fault featuring Noah Cyrus, highly recommend. It is such a good song. And we have these guys like Shabuzi and Post Malone and even Jelly Roll, who just celebrated a birthday the other day. All these guys are bringing to country what needed to be brought to country by people who started off in country, not people that transitioned from rap. But these guys are putting out bangers. 1 second. And so we have these guys that are putting out absolutely amazing songs that, like, Post Malone's new album sounded like it came straight out of the 90s. And then you have Shabuzi's, who like incorporates a little bit of rap, but it's very, very focused on like true country roots. It has almost like the early 2000s feel to it. Now, me being a fan of what I like the old school feel, and so like I'm a big fan of Charlie Crockett. Actually, this will be a good way to segue here in just a second, with that more old schooler sound. But Shabuzi definitely has earned his place in the country music world, and I don't think we're doing him justice. Whenever he's on an award show, he has like one of the biggest songs in country music with Tipsy, or A Bar Song, I think is the more actual like appropriate name. And so with that, like, why aren't we like treating him with like some respect? Like obviously like one joke like tongue in cheek would be fine, but when we're making it the joke about everything, that's a bit ridiculous. But that being said, dude should be super proud because I think he even walked away with some hardware. I don't fully follow the CMAs, but those like two things I noticed, because like Red Clay Strays posted like their pictures of them like walking the red carpet and stuff, and then I seen an article talking about how Shabuzi was treated. But the only awards that I really focus on is like my own that we're gonna do for the not so special Christmas special whenever we get to that later on in the year. That being said, I'm curious as to like what everybody's raps look like your wrapped playlists. And the reason why I ask is mine was very interesting, and like even looking at it from like the creator standpoint, Spotify shows me like my demographic and everything else, like for being a podcast creator, like how many minutes I've streamed and so on, yada yada yada. But the thing that I found coolest was this show right here is very popular, I guess, with a couple of kids from India, because in India that's my youngest group of people that listen to me. And I think it said my oldest fan is how it was worded. I took screenshots because I was like, no way. So Tin Roof was streamed in 5 different countries this year, the US being the highest. And this isn't my YouTube stats. These are my Spotify and Apple stats, I guess. So I was streamed in 5 different countries. The U.S. being my highest. My youngest listeners are from India. My oldest are from Canada. So shout out to the young bucks out in India, and shout out to the old heads in Canada. You guys are awesome. And the fact that you guys listen to my show enough that Spotify tells me that you're listening is very, very cool. I appreciate that. The coolest thing I found from all this was I thought the Krampusnacht one was going to win because like so many people streamed it, and I think a lot of that has to do with like the early on and like people are interested to see how I sound, which those first handful of episodes were terrible, like quality wise compared to now, and I think now I need to try to improve content somehow. Which I'm working on. Like I enjoy talking about these different things and kind of breaking it down as best as I can and kind of discussing things from like being a fan standpoint. But I want to do more. I'd like to do some artist interviews eventually. We've done a couple interviews on here, having like Jordan from Jordan's Harvest on here, but I was still trying to improve quality then. I think with this guy here and like figuring out my tablet setup and stuff, we can, grow from there. That being said, I don't want to like sidetrack too much because I want to focus on like some of this cool stuff that I found out in my Wrapped stuff. So my top episode was, it's in the riffs whenever we were looking at like the different things that make up Tin Roof. So that was really, really cool. Since then though, well, actually I don't know why I said since then. That doesn't make any sense. But looking at my Spotify and my Apple, one thing was consistent. Metal was my favorite genre this year. But while metal was my favorite genre, my highest listened to people were basically country artists. I streamed almost 2,000 minutes of Charlie Crockett this year, and I didn't really start listening to Charlie Crockett until July. And so I was thumping a lot of Charlie Crockett this year. Some of that comes from like being busy at work and like, okay, I want to listen to something and like keep me occupied. And his stuff I can put on and I can like hum along, sing along, whatever to every tune that comes on. And so that kind of is why that happens. But it's funny because like Charlie Crockett was my top guy there, but on Spotify my top people were Sleep Token. And I was kind of surprised by my Wrapped playlist, and I even said that what my number one song would be wouldn't be a surprise, but it actually ended up being a surprise, at least on Apple. And on Spotify it was slightly a surprise because I listened to Pain Remains so many times, and I guess because I eventually started listening to their, like, they did a full, like, Pain Remains 1, 2, and 3 together in a YouTube video, Lorna Shore did, and so I ended up listening to that one more so, I guess, than anywhere else, but I listened to it a lot on Spotify and Apple, too, and so I was kind of surprised that it wasn't my top song, because, like, on Spotify, my top songs were Summoning, Alkaline, then Pain Remains, Part 1, Dancing Like Flames. This is absolutely silly. A buddy of mine put me on some of this stuff, but Just a Pineapple by Boy What. It's comical. It's absolutely hilarious because it's a SpongeBob song, and the reason why it got so high was like the same thing as like what I was talking about with Charlie Crockett, where like I put something on and it's just to like listen to and almost like zone out while I'm doing my thing at work. And then number 5 is Euclid, which honestly is my favorite Sleep Token song, so I'm not surprised that it's up there, because like if it were how I feel it should be and not what it shows, it should, like, number 1 song should be Pain Remains Part 1, Dancing Like Flames, and then if we were to keep like similar order, like Just a Pineapple would stay where it's at, and then in number 2 you could keep Alkaline there, and then 3 would be Euclid, and then 4 Just a Pineapple, and then 5 I would replace it with Apparition by Sleep Token. If we were to kind of keep something similar here and not totally change up what I feel it should be. So top artists on Spotify was kind of cool because it very much shows a Tin Roof trend. You have Sleep Token, and then you have Upchurch, and then you have Lorna Shore, then you have Korn, and then you have Charlie Crockett. So on YouTube, or not YouTube, on Spotify, I was very mixed on what I was listening to. Now I gotta go to Apple. And if you want to comment on like what your replay for Apple Music or your Spotify Wrapped looks like what you were listening to, that would be super cool. Because whenever I was looking at like the stuff for my podcast, like we were just talking about with like the young kids in India and stuff that are watching or listening or whatever, there's a section where it tells me the genre of music that the people that listen to my show via Spotify listen to. So the number one was progressive metal, which makes sense because what do we talk about here? We talk about metal and we talk about country music, and then we talk about other things too, but those are the top two like things that built this show. And so that one was like no surprise. And it's like, okay, so prog metal, we're on the right track. Number 2, indie pop. What? That doesn't make any sense for my like that demographic doesn't make any sense for what I'm trying to accomplish here. But I'm not mad at it. I'm glad they're here. I'm glad you're here. But it doesn't make sense why indie pop people are listening to this show. But I'm perfectly fine with it. So anyways, my Apple replay was really interesting. I'm going to turn this down so I don't end up like blasting music through the mic. It's got to load. Like I said, I listened to almost 2,000 minutes of Charlie Crockett, and it was interesting to see my trends. So, they broke it down month by month, like who I listened to the most, and the most that I listened to in January was very cool because I'm a big fan of this guy's music, and I started off early on this podcast talking about how I wanted to do an episode like almost like a biography of this person, and so like breaking down like different parts of their life and stuff, kind of like what I did for the Ozzy episode. If you have listened to the Ozzy episode, and that is Chris Ledoux. I want to like go through like he was born and yada yada yada, and kind of give you like his story and talk about it, different things that I like about him. So I listened to this. This is like how much I was really trying to find what I was looking for artist-wise, as far as albums that I really liked, people that stood out to me, yada yada yada. I listened to, Spotify, I listened to like 430 different bands or artists. Apple, 501. Now, some of those are repeats, but then there's a handful on both that's not. So we could guesstimate I probably listened to somewhere around 600, maybe more artists this year. Really trying to find different things, and obviously like some of those guys are older and not putting stuff out now, but they're just things that I enjoy. And so my top artists, oh wow, I can do my top 15 from Apple. So this is cool. So hopefully this does a good reflection of my Tin Roofness as well. So number 1, Charlie Crockett, not a surprise, I guess. Number 2, Lorna Shore, not a surprise because I've touted them a lot on this podcast this year. Whitechapel, been a favorite of mine for a long time. Sleep Token, Upchurch, Lamb of God, Chris Ledoux, Co Wetzel, Aaron Lewis, and it's cool because it shows you how many minutes. So Morgan Wade, I've only been listening to for probably 2 months now, and out of 2 months, you can definitely tell that she has dominated my listening time because she has racked up 280 minutes in 2 months, which is crazy. Then you have Adam Calhoun, Jelly Roll, Will Ramos, and then rounding it out, these guys have to be a top 10 band for me. Maybe I ought to do an episode of like my top 10 metal bands, and then like do an episode of like my top 10 country artists or something like that. But In Flames, definitely one of my like big favorites. And so Morgan Wade sitting at 10. I listened to her 280 minutes. In Flames, who's sitting at 15, I listened to 210 minutes. So that kind of shows you the gap as far as like what I was doing. But music wasn't all I listened to this year. I listened to a ton of audiobooks, which I wish I could figure out how many hours exactly. I know I've read since July when I started listening to audiobooks. I've read, I got to use that term loosely. I think I'm up to 35 books now. So I've been hammering down on the books. But close that guy. Oh wait, no, I didn't want to close that guy. I gotta let it load again. That being said, drink some of my cold coffee real quick. My top songs were I'm going to start with this one because I feel like this should be the number one. Is Pain Remains 1, Dancing Like Flames. Then you got Of the Abyss, you've got Let It Burn by Shabuzi. The first two that I mentioned were Lorna Shore. Hickory Creek Acoustic by Whitechapel. Then you got sometimes Whitechapel titles don't reflect enough of... I'm joined by my guest, Penelope. Hi. Wow, that was close. They don't fully reflect, like, I guess, what the song's about. That actually... You know what? That song title, we're going to set aside. We're going to do an entire podcast on that song title later on down the road. Because I think it needs to be discussed. Actually, there's some news that happened with Whitechapel recently that I really want to discuss because I think it needs to be discussed. But that'll be so Monday's episode that hopefully, fingers crossed, will drop Monday. Next week, we're going to be discussing Whitechapel, so we'll discuss that whenever we discuss Whitechapel on Monday. Welcome back, O Sleeping Dreamer by Lorna Shore. Black Sedan, Charlie Crockett. Jamestown Ferry by Charlie Crockett. Cursed to Die by Lorna Shore. So Lorna Shore dominated my listening as well, just like almost as much, I would say, as Charlie Crockett. Matter of fact, I think if you looked at the minutes that I listened to each of them, it was really close. Why does it keep being weird? Stop being weird. So, top albums. This is pretty interesting. So, my top albums wise, it's not even close. I listened to Pain Remains 902 minutes, whereas Twisters in the second one was 165 minutes. I think that says a lot for how much I really liked the Pain Remains album. But I also really liked the Twisters album, and I'm considering it for Album of the Year for the Tin Roof End of the Year Awards. F1 Trillion, Visions of Dallas. I listened to the original Twister motion picture at one point, but I only listened to it once, so that's interesting. So some of these, it's just that how long the albums are. We talked about Ashes of the Wake earlier this year. I listened to it several times this year, and apparently that only totaled up to 133 minutes. But I feel like that's a fairly lengthy album, so I'm kind of intrigued by that. We'll go through a couple more stats of this, and then we'll begin to wrap up our episode. Something really cool with Krampusnacht to me is always like the food selection. Stolen is probably one of my absolute favorite things. Actually, next year maybe we ought to do like a cooking thing while we're doing this. Be like a straight up metal Martha Stewart episode with a little bit of y'all in there, because we cannot forget that. So my top genres hip hop somehow snuck in the middle there. So it's metal, country, hip hop, hard rock, and then death and black metal is my fifth one. So I find that really interesting. Artist month by month. This is really cool to me. January, like I said, Chris Ledoux. February was Adam Calhoun, apparently. March, I didn't have one. April was Aaron Lewis. May and June, I don't show one, which is interesting. And then July, August, and September were Charlie Crockett. October was Sleep Token. And then November was Morgan Wade. Top songs month by month. Again, nothing for March, May, and June. I don't quite understand why. July, August, and September were all three Pain Remains one. Actually, Sun Eater, I think, was one of them. Over the Hill by Aaron Lewis. That was an amazing single that I listened. Well, I guess I call it a single. It was an amazing song off of Aaron Lewis's, well, Over the Hill album. Or, no, I guess it's titled Just the Hill. So, I think that's going to do it for, like, my Wrapped stuff. I really thank you guys so much for coming by, hanging out, watching, listening, whatever with this. It was a ton of fun, and I'm glad that we got to talk some country. I'm glad we got to talk some metal, talked a little bit about food, talked a fair amount about Krampus, got to drop a couple of really cool tidbits on things that are happening next year. I don't know where we're going to go for this show yet. Maybe I'll have some answers by the Not So Special Christmas special, which I want to do something cool for. I just don't know what yet. I just know I enjoy putting out that little bit of content that, hopefully makes your Friday before Christmas go that much better. That being said, I was talking about food at one point before I got back into talking about music. So let's talk about some food real quick. Stollen, it's a pastry that is from like the region that Krampus is from, and it's a very delicious breakfast and like desserty thing. Very fruity. It's got marzipan in it. I dig it. So there's that, and then there's like usually like some like wursts that are made to go with this, and then like potato salads that are kind of like served with this, which there's a warm potato salad that I had no idea was a thing. I don't know if I would ever like consider eating a warm potato salad. I'm not a big potato guy anyways. So that's German in like northeastern Europe traditions and culture is very interesting, which having a demon of Christmas to keep your children in line is very interesting to me and kind of intriguing in its own way. But yeah, we do need to start wrapping this up. So next week we will be discussing Whitechapel and some news that is tied to them that I think is very important that we need to talk about, and why they're one of my favorite bands, I guess, while we're there talking about them. I may have like talked somewhat about that, obviously, because like they've got good vocals and instrumentals and stuff, but that's what's coming up next for this. I've got lots more content that I'm trying to push out onto this YouTube channel as well as our Paladins Maledict channel, trying to get caught up on things. It's been a very hectic week, as the week after Thanksgiving usually is. Holiday makeup, or the weeks after holiday makeups are usually nuts. Alright, well, I think that's my thing to say goodbye, so say goodbye, Penelope. Alright, you guys be good, take care, and we will see you later.